Hi guys! Today I'm going to be finishing Blood on the River. We will start with chapter 25 and we'll go on all the way through the afterwards part after chapter 27. So if you're following along, this is page 200. The day the ships are to leave, I go to Captain Smith's cabin to help him gather his belongings. He is able to take a few painful steps with a cane, but it is still hard for him to get around. Everyone says he is returning to England to get better medicine than we have here, but I know he would stay if they had not robbed him of his authority and his power to help our colony. Captain Smith holds 2 strings of beads in his hand. They are a new kind, blue, with intricate designs made by layers in the glass. They are worth a fortune in trading because the Indians prize them so much. He looks at the beads sadly. I will not need these for now, he says. He holds them out for me to take. Use them to trade this winter when the hunger sets in. I am stunned. I have never before touched these New World diamonds. As a servant, I did not feel I had the right to. Now, I am no longer a servant. Slowly, I take the beads from him. They feel cold and smooth in my hand. I tuck them into the buckskin carrying pouch hanging at my waist. Captain Smith looks at me hard. Samuel, it will not be easy here. Things will happen that will make you angry. But do not let your anger get the best of you. Channel it. Let it give you strength for what you can do to change things, to make things better. Do you understand? I nod. I have watched him do this over and over. This shifting of anger into calm action. I understand, I tell him. He looks around the cabin as if he is wanting to remember it always. My throat is tight with tears, but I will not let them fall. I remember the first time I saw Captain Smith on the docks at Blackwall, how strong and brash he seemed. I remember how I hated the idea of serving him and learning from him. Then I think of how much I have learned from him, and how much I have changed because of him. I search for the right words to say what I feel, but I can't find them. I am sorry to see you go, sir, I say finally. Captain Smith stands a little straighter. I'll be back, he assures me. I am not done with Jamestown yet. Then he does something that surprises me almost as much as the beads. He reaches out his hand to shake mine, as if I am his equal, as if I am a man. His hand is leathery and calloused from the hard work he has done here. So is mine, I suppose. We shake hands heartily. Have a good voyage, sir, I say. We begin the slow, painful walk to the ships, him with his cane and me carrying the sack of his belongings. I want to find you alive and well when I return, Samuel, he says good-naturedly. No starving, no dying from the summer sickness, no getting shot full of arrows. I grin. Yes, sir, I say. His orders suit me just fine. John Layden joins us and gives Captain Smith a strong shoulder to lean on as he struggles to walk. You have been a just leader, Captain, he says. What will we do without you? You experienced settlers know a thing or two about survival, Captain Smith says. Maybe these newcomers will learn from you. Others join us until we are a small knot of men walking slowly out of the fort gates and down to the river. The men each have something to say. You were the best president we ever had, sir. You did more work than any of the other gentlemen, sir. Who will trade with the natives when you're gone, sir? Have a safe journey, Captain Smith. The longboats are already making their trips back and forth to the motherships. Richard is there waiting for his turn. He was still asleep when I left the cabin this morning, so this is the first I've had a chance to talk to him. Samuel, he calls to me as I approach. Are you sure you don't want to come? Think of all you're missing. The seasickness, the rats, the storm, week after week in the dark 'tween deck. I take a deep breath, as if I'm savoring my memory of that journey. Ah, the stench and the way the slop bucket sloshed all over the place in rough seas. I touch my hand to my heart. I will miss it. Richard laughs. Maybe you should come back with us, he says. You can be an actor in one of Master Shakespeare's new plays. There are plenty of good things I can think of about England. Fields of heather blooming in the countryside, London's busy, exciting streets, the chance to visit my mum's grave. But I will stay here in Jamestown. I touch the beads through the soft buckskin of my carrying pouch. I suppose you'll miss me terribly too, I say to Richard, continuing our foolery. Who will you have fistfights with if I'm not there? He crosses his arms over his chest, and we just look at each other. The truth is, I will miss him terribly. Richard, you get yourself in that longboat or you're staying here, Henry shouts. He is helping with the launch, and he has no patience. There is no time for long goodbyes. I ball up my fist and tap my chest, then my forehead, then Richard's chest and his forehead. Goodbye, friend, I say. Captain Smith and Richard ride the long boat to the ship. It is not easy for Captain Smith to climb the rope ladder to the deck, but Richard and some of the sailors help him, and he makes it. They turn for one last look at the Virginia shoreline and our fort, and the group of us waving to them. Then they are ushered below to the 'tween deck for the long journey home. Soon after Captain Smith leaves, it is clear that we don't have nearly enough food to get us through the winter. When Chief Powhatan sends word that he will trade for corn, Captain Ratcliffe goes strutting around the fort full of his own importance. I will take 50 men, he announces. We have piles of copper and beads, and will bring back plenty of corn to feed everyone. Captain Smith was not the only man skilled in trading. You will see how quickly we forget he ever was. The new colonists are happy. They trust Captain Ratcliffe, and they feel confident we'll be eating well all winter. But I still see the noose, ready to strangle our colony. Then something happens that does give me hope. Hope for me and John Layden and his family. Master Percy says we will build a fort at Point Comfort, about 30 miles downriver from Jamestown, near where the river meets the Chesapeake Bay. From there, we will be able to protect Jamestown from a Spanish invasion. We'll stop the Spanish ships before they even enter the river. Soldiers will work to pile up dirt and mount artillery. John Layden and I are being sent to build cabins for the fort. We will call our fort Algernon. I fear what will happen to Jamestown this winter, with its overcrowding and lack of food, and Jamestown is the heart of our colony. I believe that if the natives attack, it is Jamestown they will attack. But at Point Comfort, we will only have about 30 men to feed. We'll have our own hogs, fish to catch, and oysters to dig. We will be just across the river from the Werewarsiak village, where the people have become like my family, and very near the other Indians who have been our friends because Captain Smith often stopped in to see them on his voyages. I have the blue beads and my Algonquin words. I will be very glad to spend the winter at Point Comfort instead of Jamestown. I happily gather up my belongings for the move to Point Comfort. Then I go to the Layden's cabin to offer to help them pack. When I enter the cabin, John is packing up his carpentry tools. Anne is sitting quietly, watching him while baby Virginia sleeps in her cradle. Are you already packed? I ask Anne. She looks down and shakes her head. John doesn't even glance at me. I frown. Why not? I ask. The barge will leave tomorrow morning. She isn't coming, John says quietly. What? I blurt out. But you have to come. No, I do not, Anne informs me. I finally have lots of other women here to talk to and help me with the baby, and I want to stay safe within the palisades, not out there in the open, unprotected from the Indians. John will come to visit me whenever he can. I will stay here in Jamestown. I sputter, not believing what I'm hearing. It is much safer at Point Comfort, I tell her. Our neighbors are the Keokatans, our friends, and the Warawarsiaks. I know everyone in the village by name. I can trade if we run short of food. Anne shakes her head. I have made up my mind, she says. You won't be safe within the palisade, I insist. The new settlers have made war with the Powhatans. John, tell her what it is like when we first got here, how we couldn't even step outside the palisade to hunt without being shot at, and men starved. John stopped working for a moment. I told her, he says. She is stubborn and knows what she wants. Then order her to leave Jamestown, I nearly shout. John looks up at me, one eyebrow raised. I realize that I have said a stupid thing. It is not in his nature to order his wife to do something against her will. She wants to stay with the other women, he says. I won't take that away from her. Anne crosses her arms over her chest and gives me a self-satisfied look. Besides, she says, our leaders are not at war with the Powhatans. Chief Powhatan just invited Captain Ratcliffe to come to Werowocomoco to trade. They will have a feast and entertain them with dances, just like you told me about. And they'll come back with lots of corn. We will have all we need to eat in Jamestown this winter, and we won't even have to go out of the palisade. I want to grab her and shake her, shout into her face, there is no safety in Jamestown. I am seething with anger. Why can't they see? Why won't they listen to me? I want to punch something. I ball up my fists ready to slug the wall. Then an image flashes in my mind of Captain Smith, ready to lose control of his anger. Then of him taking a deep breath, focusing, calming, devising a plan. I hear Captain Smith's voice in my head. Samuel, do not let your anger get the best of you. Channel it. Let it give you strength to change things. I take a breath, try to calm the fury inside me. I walk over to the cradle where baby Virginia is sleeping. She is wrapped in a blanket, her eyes fluttering in sleep, her little mouth making sucking noises. She is so new, so innocent. I look at Anne. She is young and innocent too, only 15. And she is naive. She trusts Captain Ratcliffe to keep her safe and fed. Suddenly, it is Reverend Hunt's voice I hear in my head. You must learn to make decisions out of love, not out of fear. I take another deep breath. My anger is focused. I have made a decision. I have a plan. I believe Reverend Hunt would approve. I have made this decision out of love. I am about to steal a baby. That's the end of chapter 25. Chapter 26. The next morning I am ready. My canoe nestled in the rushes has a bed of blankets, a jar of sweetened water, and a rag, and a spoon for the baby, and a piece of bread saved from last night's supper for me. I go to Anne and John's cabin. Anne is busy wrapping up dried beef and bread for John, and John is trying to comfort a fussy Virginia. Let me take her for a walk in the fresh air, I say. Then you two can have some time together before the barge leaves. John gladly hands Virginia to me. Anne ties Virginia's tiny bonnet on her and tells me to make sure I support her head. I promise that I will. The fort is swarming with people. I walk by the crowds, out the gates, and just keep going on. I know there will be people outside the fort as well, so that my message will get back to Anne. At the canoe, I am in luck. 2 little girls are washing clothes in the river. Ooh, can we see Mrs. Layden's baby? One asks. I tilt Virginia down so they can admire her, being careful to support her head. I'm going to Point Comfort, I tell the girls as I climb into the canoe. Mrs. Layden will meet me there. I imagine the ruckus when Anne discovers Virginia missing, and that these 2 girls will be in the middle of it, crying out in their high voices that they saw me and I said I was going to Point Comfort. I will have a head start by then, and I am sure that Anne will be on her way, following me. That is what I am counting on, and she will be on that barge with her husband. It will take hours to get to Point Comfort, but in my canoe I will be quicker than the barge, even with breaks to feed the child. Virginia settles nicely on her bed of blankets and falls asleep as the canoe rocks in the water. I paddle out into the middle of the river, where a big current will speed me on my way. The trees on the shores have just begun to turn their autumn colors. The day is clear and warm, with a gentle wind. I have no fear of a storm blowing up to capsize me. 3 times I stop paddling when Virginia fusses to be fed. I spoon the sweetened water into her mouth, then I dip the clean rag into the sweet water, give it to her to suck on, and she goes back to sleep. It is something I saw my mom do when she took care of a baby whose mother had died, until she could find a wet nurse. It is a late afternoon when we make it to the fort. I pull the canoe up on shore. Nathaniel is on watch along with another soldier who is sound asleep. As I carry Virginia toward him, Nathaniel stares at me, open-mouthed. "Don't ask," I tell him. "I'll explain later, but please, can I put her in your tent?" Nathaniel shakes his head. "I have to report you to Captain Davies, my commanding officer," he says. I groan. "My meat ration for a month," I offer him. His face lights up, and he leads me to his tent. I feed Virginia one more time and lay her down on a straw bed to sleep. She is wet through her blanket. I forgot all about diapers. Then I go to the waterfront to wait for the barge to arrive. I knew she would be angry, furious even. I am not prepared for Anne's rage when she arrives at Point Comfort. "I'll kill you!" Anne shrieks. She runs at me, her hands raised. I try to grab her wrists, but she is too wild. Her fingernails rake my face. I feel stinging pain. I see my blood drip. "Let me explain!" I shout. But she is screaming too loudly to hear me. "Thief! Murderer! Hang him!" she yells. John disembarks as well. "Are you mad?" he shouts. He cuffs me hard. "You deserve to be hanged." I start to panic. I have stolen a child. Will they hang me? "But she's safe," I say. "I did it to keep her safe." Captain Davies takes me roughly by the arm. "Don't worry, Mrs. Layden. He will be punished." Anne is sobbing now. "Where is she?" she demands. I see Nathaniel looking terrified. He does not want to be part of this. "I put her in Nathaniel's tent," I say quickly. That is all they need to know. I am dragged off by Captain Davies as Anne runs to find her baby. It is a makeshift brig, but it does the job. Shackles on my wrists and ankles do not allow me to move much. There is no window, just cracks between the rough boards that let me know when the sun has set. I am left with a little water and cold dirt floor to sleep on. For the theft of the child Virginia, what will my sentence be? Hanging? Whipping? I have seen whippings where at the end they are flogged a corpse. Captain Smith said he wanted me alive and well when he returned to Jamestown. I may not be able to follow through on my promise. The worst of it is that I have failed. This has all been for nothing. Anne and Virginia will return to Jamestown tomorrow with the barge. Since this may be my last night on earth, I try to make peace with God. "I'm sorry," I tell him. "Sorry that I failed with Jamestown, and that now I have failed with Anne and Virginia. I hope that at least he understands that I meant no harm in stealing Virginia. I ask to please to be taken up to heaven with my mom. In the dark, I huddle on the floor and wish for the peace of sleep." "Captain Davies!" The shout wakes me. It comes from the river. Morning light slants into my cell. I hear clumsy paddle strokes and realize someone must be approaching in a canoe. "Get Captain Davies! Now!" The shout is closer. I hear footsteps, voices, someone out of breath. "It was a trap!" the man cries. The voices come nearer to my jail cell. I press my ear against the wall, hoping to hear. "Captain Ratcliffe and his men! Only a few have escaped. I listen as he describes the horror. The men were lured into Wakamoka with promises of corn. Instead, they were attacked, their throats slit. Captain Ratcliffe's end was even worse. He was tortured to death. I crouch against the wall, straining to hear, but the voices fade as the men walk away. I shake my head in despair. More men dead, and no corn brought back to Jamestown. A sound startles me, the scraping of the lock on the brig door. I get to my feet. It is time to face my sentence and my punishment. And that's where we'll stop.